What's going on YouTube? This is Noah with Sparksight. Today I want to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart as an animator and motion graphics artist. After Effects is an amazing program for animating and compositing and doing a whole bunch of other fun things, but it's lacking in a couple of key features that I really honestly am amazed that after all of these years Adobe still hasn't given us. This is where plugins come in. There's a number of amazing little tiny scripts and additional little things that you can add to After Effects that add the features that in some cases, at least to me, are essential and required. In this video, I want to go through and show you what are, to me, the 5 most essential and important plugins that you can have in After Effects. All of these plugins are either free or very cheap, like in the $10 or under range. And by my account, they're all worth it and you should get all of them. Especially if you're doing animation and motion graphics, these are pretty much staples within the field and many professionals use them on a regular basis. The first of these plugins is called Ease Copy, and it does something that really, truly, I'm amazed is not possible within After Effects by default. Ease Copy allows you to copy the easing properties of keyframes from one keyframe to another, while leaving the actual value of the keyframe the same. That might sound kind of complicated and technical, but trust me, I'm going to dive into an example here and I think you'll see why it's extremely valuable. So here we have an animation where you have two boxes and one of them is animating along an ease. And that means that it's not just a linear keyframe from one static position to another, it actually kind of starts by speeding up and then slowing down. This is very common in most animations. But we have another box here that doesn't have that animation on it. And obviously, if I just copy from one to another, it's going to paste it on top of the other one. So usually what people do is they, start a new animation from here, go over to where the other box lands, and then move the box over, or something like that. The problem is this second box now does not have the ease. So it just moves in a linear fashion. If we jump into the graph editor on the first box, we can see that nice slope on the position value as it speeds up and slows back down. If we go over to the second box, though, it's a flat line. So what I did for the longest time is I would take these two, I would press F9 to turn them into easable keyframes as well, go back over to the graph editor, and then try to roughly match the movement of the other box. And sometimes you can get pretty close. But usually, it's just kind of a hassle. It's possible, it's just kind of annoying. And this gets increasingly more complicated when you have a number of keyframes all easing in and out in different directions and in different speeds. This is where Ease Copy comes in. Ease Copy allows you to define whatever position keyframes you want. So let's say I go here, and then actually, I'm going to go over here. I'm not even going to try and make it anything like the other box, just to show you what it can do. So now if we select these two keyframes on the first box, go over here to Ease Copy, and then under the Copy section, hit Copy, easy enough to understand, I hope, and then go down to the second box and highlight those two keyframes, and hit Paste. In this case, we're pasting the ease and leaving the values alone. So now if I play it back, you'll notice that they move with the same speed. This is really cool, and it has a lot of applications, especially if you have a bunch of things that are animating one after another. You can just animate the top one and then copy the easing itself, not the values, onto everything else. It makes those kinds of workflows much easier. You can also do it the other way around. So let's say I don't care about matching the specific speed of these two animations, but I just want them to end in the same place. So in this case, I could go to this top one, select that keyframe and copy it, but then just paste the value, not the ease. And now, they do their own weird movements, but they end in exactly the same place. Otherwise, if I had tried to do that the normal way and just copied it like that, it would have brought the ease with it. So a lot of different applications. It's so essential that I just leave it docked right here on the side of my screen at all times because it's just, I use it about as often as I use the regular copy and paste. So a super essential plugin in my opinion. Ease Copy can be found on the AE Scripts AE Plugins website for a name your own price. So basically you can donate to them or just get it for free. It's amazing. Everyone should get it. The next plugin we're looking at is called Move Anchor Point, and this one is amazing as well. This plugin allows you to quickly and easily change the anchor point of an object even after it's been animated. So basically, this is a box that's just sitting here idling, no animation on it. I can really easily click a button and move the anchor point around to the different corners and sides, so easy enough. But the real doozy that a lot of people have to deal with is, let's say I have this box that's already animated, so it's moving along on this nice little arc here. The problem you'll run into is, okay, I want to move the anchor point, so let's pull up, the anchor point and slide it around. But oh no, it's moving the whole box. That's not what I want. I just want the anchor point to move and the position stuff to move with it. You could try and do a whole lot of mumbo jumbo garbage with expressions, or you could just come up here and click this one button here and move it up to wherever you want, and notice that the path moves with it. It also comes in handy if you have a whole bunch of assets that you might have just imported from somewhere else, and they all have anchor points all over wherever the heck they want to be. Confusing, you just select all of them, and if you have it on a per object basis up here, you hit the anchor point button wherever you want it to be, and it centers all the anchor points. You can also set it to set the anchor points based off of the selection itself. So if I have multiple objects selected and I hit the center anchor point button, it centers the anchor point in the middle of all of the objects. Or I can do it per composition, set it at the bottom of the composition. So now when I scale all of these, it scales from the bottom of the composition. That has more limited uses, but I mean, it's pretty cool, I would say. Really, the big thing that I use all the time is just this per object centering of anchor points. Amazing. Move Anchor Point can be found on batchframe.com, and it's just an amazing little application you should check out. It's only $5, and it's definitely worth it. This next plugin is one that's extremely useful if you're having to sync audio to your animation, or I guess you could say syncing animation to audio, whatever. A lot of the times with voiceovers, for example, they might be 2 or 3 minutes long, and it's extremely difficult to have all of your animation layers in one comp with the audio track. It's just impractical. And so people will break things up and separate them into pre-comps, but the moment you put something into a pre-comp, you can't hear the audio from the master comp anymore. It's infuriating. So for example, here I have a project that has an audio track here that's just a song that plays for a little bit. So pretty straightforward. But let's say I have, imagine there's like hundreds more layers, and this is just an example here. Okay, so I have these 3 little boxes that are just animating kind of happily in the middle here. Let's say I want to put them into a pre-comp. So I do Control-Shift-C, call it boxes, and hit enter. But now if I hop into this pre-comp, I'll see the 3 boxes animating, but there's no sound. So the way that a lot of people deal with this is they will just kind of duplicate the audio layer down here, cut it at the beginning and end, and then bring in this one piece and drop it there. And that works. And usually you might have to disable the audio out here. But now, let's say for whatever reason, I want to move this pre-comp a little bit. I slide it up and now it's completely off. And if you had animations inside of there that were dependent upon matching the audio, it would be a mess. There are other ways around this, but none of them are as elegant as using the Universal Audio plugin. What this plugin allows you to do is select an audio track that you want to use as your master audio track, go over to its little window, and click the button that says Make the selected audio layers universal. Well, first, I need to put these back in a pre-comp, call it boxes, and then when I press this button, it's going to propagate a copy of the master audio into all of the comps and pre-comps. And if you go in here, you'll notice a little layer called Universal Audio. This layer is a guide layer, which means that its audio doesn't bleed through to the master comp and become part of the render. So it just exists in here. And this allows you to hear the same audio. And if you pop out here, you'll notice that it's in the exact same spot. This is awesome. The real magic of this is the flexibility it gives you to move these pre-comps around. If I were to move this layer, the audio inside is going to be out of sync, just like it was before. But all I have to do, I don't even have to go to the master comp. I can just go up here and click Refresh Universal Audio from Current Source, and now all of the pre-comps get fixed based upon their position within the master comp. It's amazing. I can't tell you how much time this has saved me. This gives you the flexibility to organize your animation with pre-comps in a way that wouldn't be possible before, and makes animating to multi-minute long voiceover tracks, maybe even longer, much more practical within After Effects. It's a must-have for that kind of stuff. You can find Universal Audio on AE scripts and AE plugins, and it's about $10 usually, and it's just an incredible value. This next plugin is actually just a small script that you can run that, for as simple as it is, has the potential to save you many, many, many hours of frustration. It's called True Comp Duplicator. It is most useful in situations where you have projects with many, many, many comps within comps within comps within comps. Great example of this would be like a preset or a template that you got that has, you know, this like animation and lots of stuff happening. If you go in here, you can find a whole bunch of layers, and then inside of there is even more layers and pre-comps. And let's say you want to duplicate this composition, this sequence composition. When you duplicate a composition within the project window, it duplicates that composition itself. Any other pre-comps inside of it aren't duplicated as well. They're just now linked in two different places. That behavior makes sense in a lot of cases where you have assets that you want to be used in a bunch of different places, and maybe that's the behavior you want most of the time. But sometimes it's not. And if that's the case, and the project is complicated, strap in, because you're in for hours of alt-dragging specific comps and relinking them and making sure that they're all matched up so that when you make a change in one place, it doesn't change in 5 other places. Sometimes you just want to take something and completely duplicate it and all of its dependencies from one place to another. After Effects doesn't let you do that, but this script does. Let's say I want to duplicate this sequence composition that has all of this stuff in it. If I select it in the project window and go File, Scripts, because you can either run the script file from somewhere on your desktop or whatever, or you can put it in your After Effects scripts folder, and there's instructions on how to do that when you go to install this. So if I go here and select True Comp Duplicator, while I have the sequence selected, it brings up this dialog box where I can choose a bunch of different options here. Usually you might want to check this to add a little appendix onto the end, maybe copy or version 2 or something like that. I'll just do 2. You can also search for specific like phrases or sets of letters within the names of each of the comps that it's duplicating and replace it with something else. There's a whole bunch of different options. My favorite one is the ability to group all of the duplicates inside of a new folder. So we'll just call it duplicates, for example. Exclude certain items, whether or not to duplicate the footage as well. It has all these different options, but all I have to do is hit duplicate selected and it does its magic. So once we close out of that, you'll notice that there's now a duplicates folder, and you'll notice that inside of this folder is the original comp that's been duplicated and a duplicate of every single comp that was inside of that comp and every single comp that was inside of those. And so the whole hierarchy from that point has been duplicated. If you've ever had to work with templates and other people's projects before, I think you can imagine just how versatile this is and just how much time it can save you. I can't overstate how useful the ability is to just take a specific thing that someone else has worked on, duplicate the whole thing without having to worry about it affecting other things and messing up other things. You just know you have a clean slate. TrueComp Duplicator is available on AE Scripts as well for a name your own price, which means it's effectively free, but you can donate to them, and I definitely recommend that you do. This last plugin is one that, regardless of what you're doing in After Effects, whether you're doing visual effects, compositing, animation, motion graphics, whatever it is, this one will be helpful to you, and it will be a game changer in a lot of ways. This plugin is Video Copilot's FX Console, which is a rehaul of the way in which you access the effects and presets within After Effects. It allows you to get to everything much faster and much more efficiently. So let me give you a demo of how it works. So if you're in an After Effects composition, and normally you might want to add, let's say I wanted to add a blur to this box here, I would have to go Effects, Blur, and Sharpen, Gaussian Blur, or whatever, and then turn that on and increase that. That was kind of a hassle, and now if I want to do that again, I have to go through that whole process again. Alternatively, you could bring up the Effects and Presets panel, which just lives as its own little panel off to the side here, but it's kind of slow and sometimes it's hard to get to as well. FX Console adds a hotkey where by default it's Control Space, and it just brings up a search menu right wherever your cursor happens to be. So now if I type in Gaussian Blur and hit arrow key down and enter, it adds it immediately. But what really makes this awesome and really gives it the flexibility that it has is if I bring up the FX Console and I go to its settings, I can specifically add certain commonly used effects as shortcuts. So now if I go Gaussian Blur and hit enter and add that, hit OK, when I bring this up again, Control Space, I don't even have to type anything. I can just hit 1 on the keypad and it applies that effect right wherever I need it. The thing I use this for most often is the Set Matte effect. This allows me to add the effect to a layer really quickly by just doing Control Space, 1, and then there it is. You can also go back into the settings and set certain favorite effects. So let's say I want key light to be a favorite effect. So now it'll be prioritized over other things whenever I start typing in key or light. It'll try to put it to the top of the list faster. It also allows you to save screenshots of your After Effects comp really quickly as well. If I click here, save to PNG, drop it in that folder, or I gotta give it a name, obviously. There you go. Very, very versatile and very useful. FX Console is amazingly available for free on Video Copilot's website, and it's basically a must-have for all people working in After Effects. It just speeds so many things up and makes your life dealing with effects and presets much easier. I hope that this was interesting to you. I hope you learned something. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe and all of that stuff. And if you have any other ideas about plugins and scripts that you use on a regular basis that you want to let other people know about, feel free to talk about that in the comments below. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.